For my still covenanting friends, brothers and sisters in Christ, those who have prayed for me and my family, but especially last night, you were praying for my husband to have a safe trip to Canada and back to deliver a puppy, a Siberian Husky puppy. And it was really, really special to us. Meant a lot. A lot could have gone wrong with that trip. And my husband had terrible weather for a lot of it. Hit heavy rain. What should have taken, maybe 7.5, 8 hours to come home last night ended up taking 4 hours extra. So it was about 12 hours. And the little puppy was so good. She just was quiet, rested in her crate quietly, slept part of the time she was awake and would give a little howl once in a blue moon. But thank you so much for your prayers. Things went very, very well at the border. Keith didn't have to get out of the car. He had to hand over his passport, but he did so in such a way that he had a plastic bag on his hand and handed it to the officer and then took it back with a different plastic bag, so he didn't have any contact. The way we had worked it, he didn't even leave the car actually, except a couple times he stopped on the side of the road to pull off and take his mask off. He didn't want to take his mask off inside the car, but he took it off outside in the fresh air to get a drink. And it just went very, very well. This puppy was not just getting a puppy. We have Siberian Huskies. We've had Siberian Huskies for over 25 years. But I had a very dear friend in Oregon whose name was Susan Callahan, who was the breeder we purchased our first puppies from. And her partner was Carol Broadhurst of Cortar Kennels. Susan's was Galena Creek Kennels. Carol Broadhurst was Cortar Kennels. Susan was on the West Coast. Carol was in Canada. And Susan suddenly died several years back now, and we were devastated. Her dogs, these dogs are just so special. They're beautiful dogs, they're show dogs, they're mushing dogs, they're family pets, they're therapy dogs. One of Carol's dogs helped a little boy who was autistic and deaf get through high school. Extremely intelligent, extremely just wonderful temperaments. They put so much into the breeding of the temperament in these dogs. And when Susan passed away, she left me. The last dog I purchased from her was a male, and normally a lot of good breeders won't allow you to breed unless they really know you and there's a specific reason. And Susan left my contract open where I could breed Little Bear, my black and white Siberian, sometime in the future. Wasn't sure why she did that. He was a show quality dog. These dogs they get best in show. These are beautiful dogs, but that is not really what's important to me as much as what's important to me is they are trying to promote and keep this breed what it was meant to be. These dogs came from Siberia, from the ancient Chukchi people, and they were bred to run long distances at medium speeds, and they were to be built a certain way, had wonderful temperaments, would babysit the children. They used to tie the Siberian to their toddlers so they wouldn't fall down in seal holes. And the statement of a 2-dog night, 3-dog night, that came from this idea that it was so cold there they would bed their children down with their Siberians. And depending on how cold it was, that's how many dogs they would bed them down with. But these dogs are just so incredibly special, so incredibly sweet and well-tempered. And both Susan and Carol put so much emphasis on health issues, so they'd be healthy dogs. Our dogs, we have Siberians that live to be 15 years old. One of Susan's oldest dogs lived to be 18. And sad to say, when she passed away, all of a sudden her son went and sold her few breeding dogs. He sold them, and we didn't know it right away, and they were all spayed and neutered, and all of a sudden, bang. I had an intact male and nowhere to go to breed. It took me 3 or 4 years to find other people with these beautiful bloodlines. And it ended up that we took a trip up to Canada in 2019 and bred our Little Bear to 2 of Carol Broadhurst's different females. One was a gray, one was a black and white, and we got beautiful litters from both of those breedings. And of course, all these dogs are hip and eye certified. And I remember when I took Little Bear up to get him hip and eye certified, actually Keith took him up, that he was 8 years old or 7 years old. I can't remember if it was 7 or 8, but they said he had the health and the eyes and hips of a puppy. They just were so meticulous about the gene pool that they use for these dogs. But anyway, I was desperate to find somebody to breed with, so I looked up Carol, and we connected, had 2 beautiful litters, and we kept a female from the one and a male from the other, although they were half brother and sister, so we spayed that female so that we wouldn't have an accidental breeding of father and daughter or brother and sister. But we kept Little Dipper, the male from those breedings, and he is our stud dog now. We still have Little Bear. He's going to be 13 in about a week. And he's doing very well. He's a little bit slower. You know, he gets stiff a little bit if he sits around for a while, but he's still active and healthy. And we're hoping to breed Little Dipper to this little female puppy we got and brought home early this morning when she's 2. We don't want to breed her till she's 2. We'll probably only breed her once. This is not to breed and have puppies and sell puppies. This is specifically to save these beautiful strains and bloodlines. So this meant everything to us. This was a dream we had. We worked on 4 or 5 years before COVID hit. When COVID hit, I was so afraid we'd not be able to do this. It was a big undertaking. It took hours of planning. It just was very hard to do. And now, about 6 months ago, I learned that Carol Broadhurst of Cortar Kennels, her health is failing. She's 80 now, and she's not going to be breeding anymore, probably in a year or 2. So this is the end of the line for these dogs. And like I said, I think it's great to rescue dogs. There are so many dogs that need homes, but I also think it's nice to preserve the breeds the way they were meant to be. So many times the breeds are ruined, and people breed who shouldn't be breeding at all. But this was really special, and it was a dream when COVID hit that I'd pretty much given up on. I thought, I'm never going to be able to do this. And so, I mean, we're still a little nervous. You know, we brought this puppy in. We were as careful as we could be. And I wasn't going to we were going to quarantine in one room, which we are doing sort of, but this puppy needs to socialize. I can't wait on COVID. She needs to be around our other dogs. I need to hold her in my arms. She needs to see my face. So I have been with her today. Carol and her husband are very careful about COVID. They let no one into their home. And nobody touched this puppy from the time it was put in our car by Carol and Mike last night. No one touched this puppy but Carol and Mike and us. And I asked them, they're both well. So we're hoping, I was really anxious this whole past week, and today this peace came over me, and God just undertook in such a way. I was really thinking they would have trouble with the border. And in fact, when he went to cross over, he had an Omni mask on. Of course, it's clear, so he wouldn't have to take it off for the officer to see him when he gave the passport. And the other, I think it was when he was coming back. I can't remember which way it was, but they were curious because the mask was different. And all he said was COVID with a question mark. So Keith wasn't sure if he was asking if he had COVID or if he was being careful for COVID. So the officer said COVID, and Keith said yes. Meaning that he was wearing the mask for COVID, and the officer, he quickly took his arm and he waved him right through. He wanted to get rid of him. He wanted him to go right through. So he didn't bother. But even with the storms, I mean, Keith he was planning to be home by about midnight, and it ended up not until the next morning. I was scared he was going to fall asleep. He had some Vivarin pills. He only took 1 or 2. But when he was really starting to fight to sleep, it's not safe either to pull over the side of the road and rest. That's not really a safe thing to do either. So, but I was calling him. I think I had 1 or 2 hours of sleep. That's why this is my backyard. I look really haggard right now. I didn't want to be in the video. I got so little sleep last night, and I've done nothing but taking care of dogs today. I didn't even go in the house today, hardly, except in the family room to get a leash. So my whole life in for the next week or 2 is going to be very occupied with giving extra attention to all 4 of our Siberians. It's always fun to bring a puppy in, but it's easy to give so much attention to the puppy that you don't give the proper attention to the others. This is getting pretty long, but I'm going to be very, very involved with this. I'll give you updates, but I appreciated your prayers. I felt your prayers last night. And then we got horrific storms last night here where I was. I love thunderstorms, but the thunder and lightning were so horrible. The one, just a crash, it must have hit something very close to our house. Just exploded. The whole house shook. The animals got startled, and I was like shaking all over for a while. I couldn't get back to sleep. I think, like I said, I was worried about Keith. I kept calling him to see if he was okay, and then I finally started to doze, and then that thunder rattled me to think it shook the teeth in my mouth. I don't know. My goodness, it was so loud. But thank you so much for your prayers and just for being true brothers and sisters to me. We've lost so much from COVID. I didn't want to lose this dream of what we were trying to do with these dogs, and I did it for my friend Susan, who was taken so unexpectedly and so suddenly and devoted 50 years to this, and so has Carol devoted 50 years to this. And it was just not getting a puppy. This meant everything in the world to me, and to Keith, and I'm sure it would have meant everything to Susan. I miss her every day. Just one more thing I've lost, but this was a dream, and because God has helped us with this dream, the puppy's registered name is Cortars, the breeding kennel. Cortars Catch a Dream is the puppy's breeding name, or excuse me, registered name. And of course we call her Honey Bear because she's the color of honey, and she's very, very sweet, just the sweetest thing. But I'll keep you updated. Thank you again for all your love and support and prayers. It meant more than you will ever know. God bless you all. Bye-bye.